Ironside will not be seen tonight, so we may bring you the following special program.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
If you like comic books, then you definitely like comic art. Visit comicartfans.com to see original comic artworks and custom drawings that people have collected and posted online. Coming soon, Comic Art Fans is hosting an in-person event called the Original Art Expo that will focus on the hobby of collecting original comic art. The Original Art Expo will be held at the Doubletree by Hilton Hotel in Orlando, Florida on January 26th through the 28th, 2024. They will have over 30 exhibitors and 60 comic artists. Spend the weekend in an intimate setting with some of the best creators in the world. Purchase or commission a piece of original comic art. Visit the Comic Art and Illustration Galleries. Attend the Saturday night auction and pizza party and hang out with your fellow comic art enthusiasts. The Original Art Expo is sure to be the world's premier visual storytelling art event, so don't miss out. Go to oa-expo.com to get your tickets today and visit comicartfans.com to see what comic art collecting is all about.
Hi, I'm Alex Ross.
The two pieces are sort of a type. They're both kind of recreations of artwork that existed in the 90s. In fact, this piece here for the Avengers is in most ways a recreation or a tribute to George Perez's poster version from the mid-90s, where he did a shot that featured in it a figure of Captain America that was very similar to what I've done here, positioning of the Vision or positioning of Hawkeye, and I believe a few other elements are very similar to that piece, and it's consciously so. I was building off that inspiration, but I kind of refitted my design to fill out bigger shots of the figures so that I was making a wider composition and getting in a lot of the same characters, but still not quite as many as what George himself did, because George's thing was always to try and get in the maximum amount of content into pieces that he did.
Welcome back, everybody. It's time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Happy to welcome Tim Seeley back to Word Balloon. Good to see you, Tim. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. And I got to do the thing where I look up. Well, hello. I was just drawing. Good to see you.
Yeah, that fake reality show thing of, oh, you're in my studio. Hello. I had no idea you were here. Miles of cable, cameras all over the place. Comic book men did that with the late George Perez. And I'm like, Who are you trying to kid? You get they literally were like taking baby steps, like, we don't want to disturb him while he's at his draft board. And it's like, he knows you're there. We all know that he knows you're there. Who are you trying to kid? Whatever. My other cynical comment.
Yeah.
What's that?
I really was drawing. I was really drawing. I was working on Local Man, so
awesome.
So, yeah.
Well, I was gonna say my other cynical thing is my shelf life for Happy New Year is like the first week. So by next Monday, if someone says Happy New Year, it's like, all right, we did that. You know, I know it's the new year still. You know, it used to drive me nuts in radio. A lot of times the salespeople would write their own script copy. And, you know, I'd get something literally like on January 25th that said Happy New Year. And I'm like, fuck you. I'm like, I'm not saying Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Like, it's New Year. It's like, we're done with that. Okay. Yeah. Come up with a different sense. All right. So
wish me Happy President's Day or go fuck yourself. That's the
if it's not a mattress sale, why are you wishing me Happy President's Day?
Yeah. Get the hell out of here.
Exactly. So, hey, man, you know, congrats. Local Man is kicking ass. And I know it's a critical darling, which is great to see. And I'm happy for you and Tony Fleece. That's awesome. Congrats.
Yeah, we're on like all of the major best of lists, which is lovely, of 2023. This year, we'll have to up our fucking game, I guess. But, you know, it's good to have people notice that you're doing a good book. Then you hope that people will buy the good book that you're doing. That's the next step for us.
Yeah, man. What is the plan moving forward?
Well, so the next issue 9 comes out mid January, and then we have a month off, and then we come back for a book called Local Man Bad Girls. It's kind of the same approach we did to we did the first 5 issues, and then the book Gold came out, which was a Local Man Gold, which is sort of like an annual, but sort of like a in between issue, and all of those kind of riff on something. So Gold was sort of like the big Image crossover, where our character sort of perfectly was involved in it. And then Bad Girls is a several stories of some of the female characters in the book, but it's also a sort of celebration and a big time satire of the tendency of 90s comics to go for the bad girl aesthetic, which was mostly like whips and chains and leather and tiny waist and perfectly marble boobs, and the aesthetic that appealed to 13-year-old boys in 1990 or so, and really kind of illustrated that they'd never seen a woman before. But so we're kind of celebrating it, but we're also making fun of it. And so that's the next story. Then the following series starts again with issue 10 later this year.
That's awesome. Is the second trade out?
No. The second trade is out in March, I think, or April.
Okay, I saw a cover. And yeah, I'll pop it up in a second as we're talking and stuff. But man, that's great. I'm so happy for you guys. And again, this is the right time for that kind of book. I think 90s nostalgia, and you guys have the right, I think, attitude as far as seeing the fun in it and also the ridiculousness of 90s. But no, you're telling a very sensitive story. Right? Is this the second trade?
That's the second trade. I think in March or, sometime around there. March or April? April might be. We do we have, I should check this before I come on your show, John. But it does come out relatively soon when the next arc wrapped up. And then we go and do Bad Girls. And I'm drawing that right now. So I'm drawing little tight butts and lots of cross hatching, but it's a serious story. Actually, the stories in it are actually, I'm impressed with what we came up with this one, because it's like a serious story, but it kind of messes around with the wild time for comics, which was the bad girl trend. We sort of messed around with that. So I'm very proud of it. It's pretty cool. It features Inga, who, if you read the current series, she's an important character. Jack's ex-girlfriend, and also Neon, also Jack's ex-girlfriend. And then it also features a tale of Brightside, and then the character Seeley, who's one of the other ladies in the book. So it's all stories about them that tie very heavily into the current story. Kind of how we do in the backups. There's a flashback story that tells you something that that relates, but it's done in the style of a 90s book. That's an entire book of this, and all the stories are important. And there's a framing sequence that takes place in the modern day. So. It's pretty cool. It's a lot of work. I have been drawing nonstop all weekend, all New Year's Day, all New Year's Eve. I was drawing, so I'll blame Tony as I often do.
Well, why not? He's an easy punch bag.
Yeah,
I don't blame. So would we see some of these 90s? Would we see 90s heroes and the way they are now, and will we see them?
Yeah, and actually we got a bunch of guest stars, as we did in Gold. Logan Man Gold featured, Battle Pope and a bunch of crazy image characters from across the eras. And this one has a lot of the ladies, the actual 90s bad girls. So we have Witchblade and She-Dragon and Cyblade from Cyberforce and Racket from the Jim Valentino book, The Others. Anybody who had a skimpy, weird costume with lots of knives, we've asked to borrow them. And so I'm drawing all those. It's part of the sort of continuity of Local Man, that all those books took place, and that Jack knows a lot of those people, or because he was in a team with some of them. And so for me, it's just fun to ask my idols if I can borrow their characters and draw them. So.
That's great, man. I'm talking to Roddy Barnes later this week, and Spawn and Dragon are in
Yeah,
Philadelphia,
Yeah, absolutely.
which is terrific. So I'm looking forward to talking to him about that. But that's great. That was always, I know that was partially the ambition, I think, with the Image guys ultimately to, kind of have characters intersect and everything. So it's nice that it's happening now.
Yeah, it's interesting because they actually, when they started it out, they had this idea that there would be these like shared elements that could go through, like everybody gave a permission. So Todd had the reporters, who would show up in Spawn, and like those characters were sort of like everybody can use them, and the terms like Youngblood was what a Youngblood was someone who had superpowers, or an SPB was a superpower being, was all these sort of terms, and but as the way Image, deliver books and the kind of creators that worked with shifted, it became more. There was less need for that stuff because the books became more concept based than character based. There wasn't much of a point for a shared universe that had The Walking Dead in it, right? I mean, it's like
sure.
But we loved that stuff. Tony, I love that shit. So we're trying to go back and bring as much of those elements back, and just kind of play that was the fun. When I was a kid, 14, 15 years old, and wanted to be a comic book artist, I didn't want to. Hey, it's Stefan Stepan Stajek. Good to see you, Stepan.
I love when Stefan shows up. I think that's terrific. It means a lot when he comes to watch us. He's got to come on.
But
Stefan, let me know how to contact you, man, and please do the show. We met briefly in New York years and years ago, but I've always been a fan of your work. I love your art.
Yeah, and an excellent image creator as well.
Indeed.
Yeah. But so that's part of the deal, I think, is just to take advantage of some of that fun stuff that isn't really a big part of it now. And when I was a kid, my goal wasn't to do Spider-Man. My goal was to have an Image book like that. So that, when I was 14, 15, that was the real big dream for me.
Yeah, you and Tony, I know you guys were kind of that perfect Image audience, the way Kirkman is as well, and was when he was a kid. So no, I get it absolutely. It's amazing. I love what V Verk is saying. Marvel should use that for a title, Ex-Girlfriends. That would be a good book.
The Ex-Girlfriend. There we go. I could do that book.
Oh yeah, have them all sit around and shit on the guys. Why not? I think that'd be a fantastic book. So creator owned is the true end game. Indeed, very prophetic or very profound, Stefan. I like what you're saying there.
Very cool. That's one of the things, something I'm sort of trying to deal with, and Steve would probably help me with this notion, is that when I was 13, 14, 15, that did seem like that's what we're trying to go for, and the idea was always like, let's have the creators have participation, and let's have diverse comics, like let's have different kinds of genres, and let's all the promise of Image that was there. And it is, sometimes it hits me at in 2024 that like actually it kind of worked, but like the fans still get mad because they want the 50-year-old guys want their Hulk to be the book that that caters to them, and that part of it, like the idea that you'd have these superhero books, that's great, and they would be for this, they would be these evergreens that were always refreshed for new audiences, and then those creators could spin themselves out into do books for different audiences. Like that was the dream, and I'm not sure we accomplished it because people still are like, well, if I can't read, the Avengers is too woke for me. Fuck it, I'm not reading comics. Like, what did we do wrong here? This was clearly not the way the intent was supposed to be, and it seems like you kind of get pushback from the readers, not from anyone else, which is kind of crazy.
I agree with you, and I don't understand why. I mean, for me, when I started getting older, my thing was, oh, look at all the interesting genres and other non-superhero things that are out there to read alongside the superhero books. And I've had periods where I haven't liked what was happening in my favorite books. And it was never one, I only had my 10-year period right after college where I really couldn't afford books. And it wasn't until my late 20s where I could again. And then thankfully that was the period where Bendis and Brubaker, Rucka, Gail Simone, they were all kind of coming up and doing their thing. And I'm like, oh, these are good. And then also alongside of them were, people like David Lapham with Straight Toasters, or not Straight Toasters. Straight Bullets. Excuse me. Yeah. And other crime comics and other genres, and I'm like, wow, look at how the world has expanded. Great. So I don't know what to tell you. I nothing frustrates me more, and it's actually come up a few times in the last couple of weeks, where I'll hear from. It mostly comes from the right, where it's like, well, why won't people like the comics we like? And it's like, who cares? You're getting the books that you like, and the other parts of the audience are getting the kind of books they like. Everybody should relax rather than get angry about it. I don't know.
But it's almost like a hostage situation where it's like, if you don't make these books for us, we will destroy this industry. We will burn down you know what I mean? It's just such a crazy reaction, you know. And so that's the part that I feel like I thought we were all going towards this idea, like that was the goal, and it's kind of and obviously I like superheroes because Local Man is a superhero book, but the idea being that like it's supposed to be a different kind of superhero book than Spider-Man, and I wouldn't want Spider-Man to be the kind of superhero book that I'm doing, and I wouldn't ask anybody to do that because I want to make sure Spider-Man is like there for my daughter, and like that's the kind of stuff that I was hoping that we'd have that separation, but it's weird, and I'm every time I post something like positive about comics, a bunch of people tell me I'm wrong and sales shit, and it's all going to be over soon. so I don't know. It's like, well, I mean, like I posted, it's like because part of the job is like you have to hype, like, hey, Local Man's on all these best of lists, and you should check it out, and that should increase the sales, yay! And some guy was like, you can't trust the reviews; they're all by a bunch of wokesters, and there's the comics industry is run by that, and it's all a big conspiracy. It's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, just back up, man. Go to the back issue bin, pick up some issues, and Lady Death or something, and just relax.
Lady Death. Hi, Brian Polito. Absolutely, man. No, I hear you. Good comments here in the chat. David Seeley says, Tim, Local Man is easily my favorite Image book currently being published. A fantastic book.
Oh,
and he also says he loves Zoe's Hack Slash book as well. So who's doing Hack Slash right now?
Zoe Thorogood of It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth. She's doing her own. I just let her go nuts and do her own book. And 2 issues came out, and then she got hit by what appears to be COVID 4 times in a row. So we're a little late, but but Zoe's Hack Slash book, issue 2, is the highest rated comic of the year. That's true.
That's great.
A Hack Slash book is the #1 critically rated book of the year. So there you go.
That's wonderful to hear. Stefan says, he came from a European tradition, and it's every genre but superheroes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
L-Dog, Money Shot is hilarious, and Dark Red was dope. He has to catch up and grab Local Man. Indeed, my friend.
Well, you got the other ones. Nagging, this complete the collection. Those are all sort of my my rural America cycle of books, apparently. So, there you go.
And Stefan says people often pine for the success of manga while failing to understand that manga is a bunch of creator-owned books.
Listen to this guy. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. And it's just this, or just the idea of how much it is, the delivery system and how they're different. And, that's a whole other thing. But it's part of the reason why I was like, I got to just start making some videos because I feel like I'm talking to nobody. And when people get mad at me and yell at me, I'm always like, okay, that's fine. But at least know what you're talking about. Like, let's have a base of conversation to start with, because I'll have people yell at me about stuff and I'll be like, you don't know that there's a direct market and a book market, do you? Like, there's things that, and that's fair. Maybe no one has to talk to you about this stuff, but if you're going to get mad at me, at least know something. Like, that's all I ask. And so that's why I've been like, I want to film some shit. Just explain things like why Image Comics, how does Image Comics work? Because it does seem like as we've gone on and some of the new readers coming in don't really know what that is. So, or some of the old guys just never cared. And so, just like trying to explain some of these things that, and partly it's because I was on strike for school and I didn't have class and I was getting bored. And apparently, like, I have to teach something or I go fucking crazy. So partly was that too. So.
Is the strike over at Columbia?
Yeah, it is. It was the longest adjunct strike in American history. So
really?
Yeah. 9 weeks it was. So yeah, but it's ended. It's over, and they have to pay us for the times we didn't work. So that's cool.
Wow! Congratulations, that's great. It's rare when the workers win that big.
I mean,
so,
it's funny because all this, the screenwriter strike, the workers won big, and it just seems like these and the reasons that the people had to go on strike were basically the same. It's just that they're not wanting to pay the people who actually do the shit. What the studio strikes were about, and it's what Columbia strike was about as well. So yeah, it's but I'm glad it's over. I'll go back to school in mid-January, and that'll be nice because clearly I start to get weird. It's just me in this room by myself. I just need to tell people some shit. I don't know whatever psychosis that is. That's what I have.
You've got your YouTube channel now. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you. And yeah, you've made several videos. They're short to the point, and just kind of venting and giving information and trying to explain why superheroes, why Image Comics, why go to your comic book store, among the topics that are covered in Tim's videos. Are you going to do more?
Yeah. Yes. I took off just because I have the holidays and stuff, but
sure.
Yeah, I'll definitely do. And again, the whole point is I don't want to edit anything, and I don't want to fucking make graphics, and I don't want to do any of that shit. But I will just help you understand some basic stuff or where to find some information. And it can be very helpful for all kinds of people, but especially the people who don't like me, get mad at me. Then you'll be able to say, have the information that you need to be like, okay, now you're fucking wrong. And I'll be like, okay, now at least you have the proper terminology to hit me with. So, but also I just think, it's interesting with comics as far as the fandom goes, is because it's so superhero reliant, it's so reliant on Marvel and DC. And that is kind of what the fandom is. There is this tendency, and it's been years, but that is comics. Like comics have to be these things. Like even though I think everybody knows that, there's to some degree this sort of like, well, it has to be a superhero book. It has to come out monthly in this format. All these things that just to become the way they are. But like one of the things I wanted to talk about is like superheroes is not the first genre for comic books at all, and it wasn't the second, it wasn't the third. It came along later. It became very popular because of factors. But there's always been comedy comics were first. That's why it's called comics, because it's comical. And there's all these things. Science fiction was first. Crime was before that. All that stuff. So it's part of it's just like let's just have a baseline to talk about from, and then we can get into the weeds.
I understand. Stepan says when you mentioned obviously the difference between the direct market and the book market, he says his own stuff is barely a blip in the direct market, but it's cooking in the book market. There are no simple answers for what book will make it. Oh, absolutely, man. And again, it's great that the book market is finally recognizing the value of the comic book reader, and both the publishers and the stores, both independent and the big chains like Barnes and Noble and Amazon. We all miss Borders, and that certainly was when Borders dissolved, that really hurt a lot of comic book publishers and also comic creators.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too because Stepan is a perfect guy to talk about this with, because he has some stuff and I have Money Shot, which are adult books. They are
yes,
sex in them. They have nudity, and I would say they're both fairly tasteful, but they are sexually explicit books, and they are hard to sell in the comic book store. But I mean, and Stepan can tell you, I mean, Money Shot has been reprinted the first trade 5 times because
that's great.
So they do sell there's this world out there of which is beyond the comic shops. People have interests that are not just superhero stuff, but they're also like more comfortable with adult material, and that stuff really works pretty well in the book market. So yeah, I mean, I know how popular his books are on those markets because I'll get the Amazon reports and it'll say like #1 adult comics, and it'll be like Sunstone and then Money Shot, and sometimes we fight it out, and sometimes it's like we're competitors and supporters of each other, and so that's fantastic. And I know that should be the way it works. There should be all kinds of comics for all kinds of readers, especially horny ones. That's very important.
Yeah, I agree with you. No, I'm happy that Jimmy Palmiotti still makes, and Amanda and Justin Gray, that they make R-rated comics still. And it's like, no, that's fine. That should be okay. I got, and really, it's, was it Wally Wood that did Canon? Yeah. Man, I had never read Canon. It's a bit tough if you're easily offended.
Yeah.
Because it kind of does reach into stereotypes and stuff, but it's a great action book. And yeah, I mean, it's, kind of an R-rated James Bond kind of story and stuff. You can find that. And that was in the 70s. That was in the early 70s and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
and Wally Wood was, speaking of other means of distribution, he was teaming up with the Army Corps to make comics for military bases, and sold I don't remember the number, but I believe it was like 300, 400,000 of that one book that they ordered that was just for military bases. I have it sitting around here. It's a great.
I thought that was Canon. Maybe it isn't. I thought that was Canon, but maybe not.
There's another one that's like a sampler, and it has like a fantasy story and a sci-fi story and a Wally Wood stuff. It's pretty amazing. But he was always trying to think of different ways to get comics to a wider audience and stuff. So
absolutely. Roberts 100 says all ages to adults should always both be on the shelf, but just separate for age groups, and shops could easily implement that. Hey, there she is. That's the Contessa. Hi, Valentina.
Scooby-Doo versus Kiss. That's the movie for you. Yay. Okay. She wanted a Kiss Scooby-Doo movie, so I ordered her the DVD. That's what came from Amazon. So she's very excited.
Outstanding.
She inexplicably just loves Kiss. I'm not exactly sure. We're not huge Kiss music listeners. I'm somewhat, but Valentina loves Kiss. So
have you watched the Phantom of the
Park? Phantom of Park. Oh, yeah.
Park. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. We went through them. I mean, this Kiss Scooby-Doo animated movie is amazing. I highly recommend it.
When is that from? Is that new or?
I think, yeah, it's awesome.
And are any of the band members actually playing themselves?
All of them. Well, not Ace and not the guys that are
not Peter and Ace.
Yeah, but Gene and
Jan Blanket too.
And then also they do a whole Jack Kirby sequence where it's all weird cosmic Jack Kirby thing. It's amazing. There's a weird space god and all this. It's pretty cool. Highly recommend it.
Wow. Jesus. How old are those guys now? God bless them for having the wigs and the makeup.
Yeah.
Because they can still look like it's 1975 if they want to.
Yeah. I mean, they both still look pretty good, but I think, didn't they just retire, and now I think they're just going to have digital avatars of themselves play?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Which, man, I can't wait till I can just have my digital avatar do shit and I'll collect the checks. That'd be great.
Yeah, that'll probably be my one AI move when the black hair finally turns full gray and everything. I'll have a word balloon avatar of myself.
Yep, so. It's this AI it knows all the shit that you like. It talks about it at length.
Outstanding. Well, I'm really glad you're out there on YouTube now, doing your thing because, and again, it's just everyone can just search for Tim Seeley, and you'll find the channel, and there's good stuff up there, and again, you're not like me where it's at least an hour or something like that. You go right to you get your point across around 10 minutes.
4 to 7 minutes is I think the sweet spot. I've been teaching college kids for 4 years now, and I know this voice can only be handled for about a maximum of 9 minutes or so, and they just fucking zone out. So I do. I've learned my lesson. They're 4 to 7 minutes, and just trying to focus on just a subject that I think people might find more interesting, and use some information about. And happy to also take requests if people have questions about things they want to know about. Most of the information I'm giving in here is stuff I'm pulling from my class. So I already wrote all this stuff. You know, this is all, and eventually I'll get to like the how to draw kind of stuff. But I feel like there's more value there's a lot of people that do that, and there's less people just talking about the medium itself. So I figured I'd focus on that for a little bit and see if there's any, because so much of what I end up finding interesting in my cartooning class is not so much like, well, here's how to do perspective, which I do teach, but the stuff that like I really get interested in is just the stuff about some of the history and like just why the colors are the way they are, and some of the the purple and green for superheroes and red and blue and yellow for supervillains, and red and blue and yellow for superheroes, and all those sort of things. Like they're all limitations of printing, and all that shit is so interesting to me because it's all these things that people just go, well, that's just how it is. Like, no, it's that way for a reason. That's the thing I find the most interesting.
I agree with you absolutely, and the production end of why comics were made the way they were before color got more sophisticated and stuff. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, that's an area that isn't normally covered when you talk about comic history. Zach, how you doing, man? Zach, I want you to know I got your Christmas card today, so I thank you very much. That was very nice that you do that. Longtime fan and longtime Bendis board member, and just a guy that around comics because of being online and stuff. So it's as always, I appreciate him watching. John Bivens has a question for you, Tim. Any chance of you getting back in the Twin Cities anytime soon?
Oh, hey, John. I would love to. They should throw a con in there, and then they should bring me out, and I will definitely go to the Twin Cities. I used to live there, and John knows this, but I love Minneapolis and St. Paul, especially Minneapolis, which is such a great town. But I did it like right before the pandemic. They had a Galaxy in Minneapolis. Oh. It was great. I'm so happy to be back, but I haven't gotten to go back since.
Is FallCon still a thing up there or no?
Yeah. I think so, yeah. Which was always a great time. I used to live like walking distance to the Minneapolis Fairgrounds. And so like I used to go to that convention, just walk out my door with my, my bag of shit and sit down and sell stuff. So, but that's now 20 some years ago. And now I feel real old, but yeah, great town. Love to go back there. Awesome comic scene, great comic stores, good creators, John and Xander and all those guys. So,
sure, Xander Cannon, absolutely.
Love that town. Happy to go back someday.
He also says, FallCon is still going on, and Twin Cities Con is the current big one.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I wasn't familiar with that one. Because Galaxy Con ended up being, I think, a one-off there. So,
my last full-time radio job was with Hubbard Broadcasting, that's based in Minneapolis, and great company, and kind of Tim, you'll relate, kind of like WGN is here in Chicago in terms of like a really, really old broadcast company, and very local, and they bought the first color RCA cameras that weren't used for NBC RCA stations.
Wow!
So they were like the first independent to like buy and use, like in 1939 or whatever, a color camera and stuff. No, really good broadcast town. And of course,
it's a good music town. It doesn't get the credit. It's so much stuff comes out of Minneapolis. So.
Absolutely. Too funny, man. So so what's Tim? Are you in the midst of a He-Man comic right now?
Well, so the one I just finished one. It was called Forge of Destiny. It's a prequel to the Revolution, actually. Also cartoons that the Kevin Smith one did on Netflix. So Forge of Destiny issue 4 I think it just before Christmas came out, and so that one is it just wrapped. And I'm currently working on another one that I can't talk about yet. But I'm working on another He-Man comic. I just turned in the script on Friday, so trying to always keep a toe into the Master of the Universe stuff because it's some of my favorite stuff to write, and I feel like the Revelation cartoon laid so much interesting groundwork to play with, and so we approached that one as like, let's just tell like a Master Universe story, like just a story set in this world and set up the relationships, and so got to work with Eddie Nunez, who did the character designs for the animation, so he was working with the studio on that, so it was really fun and really happy with it. So I recommend checking it out if you haven't read it.
And who published that?
That's Dark Horse.
Okay, that's through Dark Horse. Very cool. No, I love that Kevin Smith Masters of the Universe series, and really enjoyed some of the new ideas that he put in it, and also the ideas for She-Ra and Prince Adam, the whole spiel.
And then Revolution, I think, is in it's in either late January or early February, so it's coming soon, and that one's really cool. I got to read the scripts for it, so now I feel like now I get to be that guy. I was in the know. I got to see the scripts that Tim Sheridan and Kevin wrote. So I to make sure that it lined up with my comic, which it didn't need to. I was set way before, but so yeah, it was pretty fun.
That's excellent. That's fantastic. In fact, today, by happenstance, I was watching a Lou Scheimer documentary.
Oh, really? Filmation? Yeah.
Yep. And they were talking about when he made the leap to syndication cartoons versus Saturday morning network cartoons.
Yeah.
And I mean, the amount of work, they said that, the average cartoon series back then would make 13 to 26 episodes. But for He-Man to run 5 days a week, they made like 65 or something. Yeah.
7 for the first season. And whatever. Yeah. It's insane. And then some of the stuff with that cartoon. And so why is it like that? It's like, well, because they had to make 67 of them. Like, why do they have the sort of reused animations? Like, because it's impossible to do that without some of this stuff. And they one of the things I love about it, because they use the footage over and over again, all designs had to be symmetrical. They had to be exactly the same on either side. So that way, they could just flip the animation and have the character run a different direction. So Orko, whose name was originally Gorpo, had a G on his chest, and that was a problem. So now it became Orko, and it was a O, and that's symmetrical. So, it's like some stuff just like that's the part. I guess maybe when you get older and you know how the sausage is made, the thing you start to find really interesting is the why. Like why is it done this way? It's just so much of it is because shit's hard to make, man. Like that's why it's that way.
I remember in the early days of the Bendis message board, I got into a conversation because this absolutely plays into what you were saying before about people that will disagree with us or just have an opinion, an uninformed opinion. And they were talking about animation, and they're like, oh, isn't it a shame that Hanna-Barbera in the 50s dumbed down animation because they would have the background that obviously looked like it was on a conveyor belt.
Yeah,
rotoscope, basically. And it's like, if you know the history, literally, Hanna and Barbera worked for MGM and made those Tom and Jerry cartoons in the 40s and 50s before they lost the gig. And they would get a budget of $90,000 per 7-minute cartoon. Well, then they had to make their own cartoons and sell them, and they had a budget of $9,000 per 7 minutes. Yeah. Wow. And it's like, that's why. I mean, it's like they didn't set out to make the animation world shitty. It's like, no, the economic realities were this is how much they had to work with, and they had to make do. And that's why they always say like a lot of their characters wore ties, either bow ties or regular ties, and they would animate the lips and blink, but everything underneath was stayed static. Yeah. And the same goes for if you watch the Filmation documentary that I did today, it's on YouTube. The same kind of explanation of that's why they had to do rotoscope and, as you said, reverse angles and use the same stock footage over and over again. And you hear it from Scheimer and all these other guys that worked at Filmation and are just like, this is what we had, this is what we had to do to make it work. And it was interesting because they would show the Batman and Robin cartoon.
Yeah.
And Batman and Robin would go through like kind of the same acrobatic moves.
Yeah.
And clearly it was the same start of a figure that they would paint over and make Batman or Robin, however they needed to do it. And yeah, it's interesting. And again, it explains why things were the way they were.
And a big thing with Filmation too was they were trying to keep animation in America, and all the other studios were going to China or Thailand or and they were trying so hard to keep people employed. So they had, the staff that they're like, no, we're gonna keep doing it, even if it means, it doesn't look as slick as some of the other stuff, which was filmed in, in China or Japan or animated somewhere else, and for much cheaper, right? They just want to keep their staff employed, which is the ultimate honorable art thing to do.
And that's a big theme in this documentary, was the losing battle of trying to keep it all here in the States. Yeah. And ultimately they got foreign investors in Filmation, but really the foreign investors, all they wanted was the library. Yeah. And pretty much like within weeks of them taking over, they told Lou Scheimer, you got to lay people off. And that was kind of the beginning of the end and everything, which is, it's a shame. Yeah, I get angry at people that make fun of Filmation. The animation is terrible. It's like, hey, the stories were amazing.
Yeah, I heard really good stories.
Of course, He-Man, but my thing is always like, they did 17 episodes of Star Trek that are legit Star Trek stories.
Right. I love those. I love the Filmation Star Trek stuff. So good. I think that was probably their crowning achievement as far as their animation goes too.
And they won an Emmy for it. They won a story Emmy for it, and the only time that Star Trek won an Emmy based on story was for the animated series. Did you ever see Scheimer at San Diego, or ever get a chance to talk to him at all?
We interviewed his daughter for the Art of He-Man book, but he was gone by the time that we did the book. But yeah, we interviewed his daughter, who was a voice of a bunch of characters. So that was pretty. Oh, it's Kelly Jones. Look at that. There we go. Speaking of stuff I'm working on, Kelly and I are doing a thing, but we can't talk about it. But it's awesome.
Hey, that's awesome to hear. Fantastic, man. No, Kelly, like Stefan, it's always a great compliment when you're watching. So I appreciate it, Kel. Thanks a lot. And HR, there you go, man. He loves Filmation. Absolutely, man. No, that's awesome. She's in the Scheimer's daughter is in the documentary as well.
She's really fun. Yeah.
I saw Lou at his last couple San Diegos, and Andy Mangels.
Oh yeah.
Andy's in the documentary, and Andy wrote that great Filmation book. So, and I'm glad you mentioned the book you and Steve worked on, The Art of Masters of the Universe, which is a terrific coffee table book. People should absolutely look and see. I hope Dynamite still prints it and makes it available.
Yeah, it is. I think it's another one of those that keeps getting printed. It's a very popular book. They did such a nice job on the design and stuff of that. It's such a beautiful collection of stuff, which is so funny to me to think, because so much of that stuff was Mattel at the time didn't know they didn't really know what they had. They just had all these files, and so they gave it to us, and Steve and I were like, this is good, but what about these? And we pulled them all from the internet. We're like, do you have these? And they were like, we'll find them.
Tell us. Oh, that's great.
It was awesome. So yeah, some of the stuff they didn't know they had, and we were just like, you have it. Trust us. You have it somewhere. It was awesome.
Well, and also all the great tribute drawings of He-Man that well-known animators and comic book artists have done over the years. Bruce Timm and Dini.
Staples commissioned a bunch of those for the BCI release. So there's it's an Adam Hughes one, and Alex Ross, and I know Steve Bunn has done a bunch of masters. Speaking of, he and I always go in circles, but he did a bunch of really awesome She-Ra and Master Universe stuff too. I'm not sure those are he did for the BCI ones. I think so, but there's a lot of those really, they got awesome comic book illustrators to do it. Bruce Timm's some of his earliest work was on the Master Universe mini comics. That was how he ended up. He was an animator at Filmation, and then they just said, "Hey, you want to draw these comics for an extra paycheck?" And he did those.
That's excellent. And of course, a couple of years ago, you did the Masters of the Universe Justice League crossover.
Yeah, versus Injustice, which is
that's right. Even worse. Yeah. So it's the game version of the Justice League that has a lot of bad guys in there as well as good guys.
It's Evil Superman's the NetherRealm game. And at first I was like, how am I going to make that work? But then I figured it out, and then that led to I wrote co-wrote that most recent Mortal Kombat game, Onslaught, with Dominic Chincello. So see, it all works. It all ties together in this business. You got to just be opening cool stuff, and then sometimes it leads to even cooler stuff.
Absolutely. What am I missing, Tim? We talked a little bit about Money Shot. You could talk more about it if you want, but am I missing also any other current books?
The other one, because I feel like it didn't get as much attention, but it's one of my favorite things I've ever done, and it's really well reviewed. Is the Minor Threats, the Alternates, which I did with Jordan Bloom and Patton Oswalt. It's Scott Hepburn, Chris Mitten, Tess Fowler. We assembled this huge team of people to do this thing. It's a set in the world of of Minor Threats, which is Dark Horse superhero book by Patton and Jordan and Scott Hepburn, and it tells the story of these sort of like C-list supervillains that get basically do a thing that's way out of their league, their wheelhouse, a very big crime. And so it's a great series, and I highly recommend it. Beautiful art, good story. And then so the Alternates is set in the same world. It's a different group. They're a C-list superhero team, but they were all rebooted and turned into essentially Vertigo characters, and then debooted back into themselves. And it's ruined their lives. They're all they used to be these like counterculture icons and all this stuff, and now they're just back to like punching out people and driving goofy mobiles and stuff like that. So it's we play it pretty serious, but not all the way serious. But Chris Mitten drew the shit out of it. It just finished up also like 2 or 3 weeks ago, issue 4, and I think the trade comes out soon. But definitely one of the better things I've ever written. I think it's like on par with Local Man. So I hope people check it out.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. It's and if you didn't read Minor Threats, I totally recommend Minor Threats. It's fantastic. So because Patton, he's a big comic book nerd. But years ago, he had written this JLA book called Welcome to the Working Week, and I loved it. I was telling people you got to read this superhero book. And then so when he started working on this, I was like, I knew Jordan. I was like, I love this book that Patton did. So I want to pitch you a thing. So I came up with this, the alternate idea with Jordan's. But yeah, I really love it. I really want people to check it out. I really want to talk about it because I feel like there's tons of shit in there that's kind of meta, but there's also just lots of comic book tricks and stuff that we get to play around with, storytelling tricks and stuff. So I'm really proud of it.
Well, when the trade is coming out, let me know, and let's do a new talk about that. Sure. I'd love to do that. Who's it coming out from? Is that Dark Horse as well?
Dark Horse.
That's excellent. Man, Dark Horse, I got to tell you, it seems to be picking up the slack on a lot of great properties and creators and stuff, and I'm glad they're finding room on their roster for guys like you and Brian and the rest that are making good creator-owned books.
Yeah, I feel like they kind of figured out one of their things because they figured out with Black Hammer is like if you make a little specific universe with a different approach, that there's like tons of room for creativity in it. So there's another Minor Threats series coming, and so just get to play around with that stuff. It's a really good system. I'm glad Dark Horse kind of figured. It's kind of the Hellboy model, like create the character, and then there's all kinds of miniseries, and you can have all these connecting characters, and it works great.
That sounds great, man. Excellent. And it's funny. I not to name drop, but Christopher Priest was on a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about how it's hard for DC and Marvel to let the A-list characters get quirky, and I mean it's just, they want to protect them because these are the engines that are driving the train. I mean they are the main focal point, and obviously they're the ones that are on the birthday cakes and the bed sheets, and licensing is really key, and they don't want to necessarily present a character in too quirky of a light or too edgy of a light that would interfere with that business. And I understand that, but yeah, because obviously Priest did a great job with Deathstroke, and we were talking about the stuff that Tom King did with Human Target and Mr. Miracle and the like, and this recent Danger Street that just wrapped up. And he's like, yeah, it's a shame that, you can't take those swings with the Batmans and the Wonder Womans and the Supermen and stuff. And I'm like, well, I think Priest just did it with Superman Lost. I don't I love that series. It's one of my favorite series of the year. And yeah, I'm like, well, and he's like, well, it just it didn't find its audience yet. And it's like, well, that's a shame, but maybe they didn't know. And maybe if that book was positioned as a Black Label book, for example, maybe it would have gotten a little more notice. I don't know.
I think it would get probably less, but Priest is majorly underrated because he's a genius. He and I have talked about this before. Is because we had almost the same conversation. I just said, well, then just make your own guy. Make your own guy. Make it weird. And he's like, yeah, but I want to play with the big toys. It's like, that the other side of that, and this is kind of the thing with the alternates that we do, like, that's what's so great about the B-list characters at Marvel and DC, because they don't care about them, or they don't work very well. Like, they work a little bit. Like, you can still do, it's like Blue Devil is popular enough to get an action figure or whatever, but he's not sustained a series in a long time. So if you have a weird idea, they're just like, I don't know, shit, make this thing work. I don't know. So I always liked, I think that's why, and it's always kind of worked against me in comics, but I always liked the B characters better than the A characters usually, just because they were so flexible and there was so much you could do with them. And, like my big get was I got a Crystar action figure. He's actually right behind me on this side. Here we go. The new Crystar, the Crystal Warrior from Marvel. He's over here. Let's see. There he is, right there.
Okay.
He was this like forgotten 80s He-Man knockoff Marvel did, and they made an action figure of it. I was so excited to get the toy that I was like, "This is the greatest day, the greatest Christmas ever." But I mean, those characters, because they didn't hit in a way, you can just be weird with them, which is, think of Animal Man and how we couldn't have done that if it wasn't for the fact that no one gave a shit about Animal Man before Grant came in.
That's exactly what I was thinking of when we were talking about it. It's Animal Man, Johnny Double. Again, I mean, these, as you say, I mean, I remember their weirdness when I would find them in back issue bins from the Silver Age. Dial H for Hero, things like that. Yeah. And it's like, no, that's the kind of character, like you said, that you could take and really mess with in a great way and give them psychological problems, give them emotional problems, whatever, and make them interesting. I mean, I agree with you, and I think that's good. But also, as you say too, hey, make your own. I mean, God, I was with dinner with a friend on Saturday, and she's a big Supernatural fan, and I was telling her about Jensen Ackles on The Boys as Soldier Boy.
Oh yeah,
and I'm just like, this is like a Captain America that on the surface is this great propaganda hero that everybody loves, but deep down is crazy as shit and doesn't give a damn. And is this really interesting kind of opposite mirror image of Captain America. And it's great. And it's like, that's fun. Or Irredeemable, what Wade did with a Superman idea and stuff at Boom.
Yeah. I think it's the templates exist and they've been there for 80 years. So it's like they can, Valentina, well, Bubba, I'm on a radio show. You want to say hi though?
Contessa.
Want to say hi?
Hey, Valentina, how are you? Good to see you.
Say hi, John.
Hi, John.
Hi, Valentina. Great to see you.
Listeners. It's too many words?
Too many words. Too many words. Did you have a good Christmas, Valentina?
You going to what?
I found T6.
Oh, yeah? That's great. Okay, crazy. Okay, let me finish up this thing and I'll come hang out with you, okay?
Yeah, we can wrap up, Tim. I don't want to keep you from the kid. It's cool.
No, so this is the end of the day, and then usually after this we go do something or run around or whatever. So, she's waiting, and her hands are all wet. Who knows why?
No, she's got good taste. No, that's great, man. Well, that's great. I'm glad we had a chance to catch up, and again, Local Man coming up, and alternates is the
alternates. Minor Threats, the alternates.
There you go.
I really like it. I want people to read it. Please do. If you like Local Man, you will like this one. Also, Money Shot, and if you like Stepan Sajic's Sexy Porn Comics, you will also like my Sexy Porn Comics. But his are really good too.
100%. I agree with both of those things. Absolutely. And Local Man continues. Money Shot from Vault, and the He-Man comic as well from Dark Horse. So,
and a thing with Keely here. So I
didn't hear about that. That's excellent. So
another script. So I'm going to get that in there.
We'll wrap up and let Glenn wish us well, and hope we're all having a great New Year. Yes, until January 10th, Glenn.
Yeah, okay.
Then I won't accept Happy New Year from anyone.
Everybody can go fuck off. You're not thinking.
Yeah, well, it's all right. We're in it now. All right, it's 24. You get used to it. It's not new anymore. It's like a brand new car. Once it's off the lot, it starts to depreciate.
That's right. Exactly.
Dude, my best to you and Paula and Valentina. Have a good night.
Yeah, thanks so much, John. And we'll see you in the real world perhaps one of these days.
Yeah, I miss you, buddy. Absolutely. No, we'll make time for a dinner or a lunch. Absolutely.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, brother. Tim Seeley, everybody. Thank you very much, and thank you for watching. I'm gonna have, like I said, I'll be talking to, Jesus Christ. Now I'm blanking. Shame on me. Rodney Barnes, Philadelphia. That great Lakers show from HBO last year. God, what a great show. And I don't know. I think there's a story there, man, because it was only 7 episodes. What a weird number to finish season 2 with. I don't know. But we'll find out more when we talk to Rodney. That's going to be on Thursday night. I hope you'll join us. It'll be 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 Central, and 7 o'clock West Coast time. Make sure you join us then. Until then, thanks for watching. Everybody else, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.